Redline logbook here for D. Gray Man's Eastern Branch and Edo Arc. Part 2. And we start off where we left off with the level 3 floating above the ship that's carrying everyone to Edo. While it's doing that, Lenalee takes a shower and realizes she doesn't have anything to tie back her hair, so she goes to Anatee's room and asks if she has anything. Anatee, who has taken a liking to Lenalee, decides to braid her hair with one of her mother's hair pieces. Whenever Anatee tells Lenalee that these belong to her mother, obviously Lenalee tries to reject them, but Anatee says, I was supposed to inherit them after my mother's death, but I just couldn't wear them. And she doesn't want them to go to waste, so she decided to give them to Lenalee. She explains that her mother fell in love with Cross at first sight, and her mother became a supporter of the church because of that. And after her mother died, of course, Anatee took over her mother's role and continued to support the church, and of course, support Cross personally, because he was the man that meant the most to her mother. So while it might have seemed like Cross was a lover to Anatee, especially since people within the village say that, in reality, she cares for Cross not as a lover, but as the man that was the most important person to her mother, and she will continue to support him because of that. Back on top of the deck, Robbie is currently thinking over what he was just told by Bookman about them not being real allies of the church, and they're there just to observe the true history of the world so it can be recorded into the future. There is no need for a bookman to have a heart, and Robbie is obviously having a hard time dealing with that. Robbie's been with Bookman for years, obviously, but he still cares for people, especially people he sees as his friends, so this is just breaking him inside, having to treat everyone like they don't matter. And unfortunately for Robbie, since he's focused on that, he doesn't notice when the level 3 lands right behind him. The first person to notice that they're under attack is Miranda, because her innocence is activating and it's repairing the ship over and over, which means something is destroying their ship over and over again. When everyone rushes to the top of the deck, they see the level 3 hovering over Robbie's beaten body, holding his fingers like a photographer and saying, title, next to his death. But of course, Robbie is inside of Miranda's power, so all of his wounds heal and he immediately attacks Akuma with his giant hammer. Unfortunately, it's a level 3, and so it didn't even get phased by this attack. In fact, the Akuma was more annoyed that all of Robbie's wounds healed and just ignored the hammer altogether. He then knocks Robbie away. Once again, he heals real quick, but the Akuma ain't stopping. He immediately jets towards Robbie, and he's about to smash his head. Now, Miranda's ability, in a sense, can reverse death, but it actually can't, because as soon as she deactivates her ability, if you died, you're dead. That's all there is to it. So the Akuma is literally about to splatter Robbie's head, and he's about to die for real. Fortunately for him, Bookman activated his black needles, blocking the attack. After protecting Robbie, he then multiplies his needles to an insane degree, completely pins the Akuma down, and covers every inch of its body in the needles, kind of like a full-body bladed suit. Book then starts to interrogate the level 3. First, he asks, where did you come from? And the Akuma says, my name is Eshi, and I am created from a painter from Japan. And then says, okay, well, there's no reason for you to be hunting people in the middle of the ocean, so who ordered you to come straight for us? Eshi then smiles and reveals that he wasn't pinned at all. He was easily able to move. He actually launches at Bookman, grabs him with his teeth, and flies him up into the sky. Robbie freaks out and goes after Bookman by extending his hammer. Unfortunately, he's too late. All he sees is Bookman's needles fall down from above, and then Bookman's unconscious body falls into Robbie's arms. Then out of nowhere, Lenalee zips past Robbie, ordering him to go back to the boat. She does this because he's too far away from Miranda, and all of his wounds are returning, and he's basically coughing up blood. Also, Bookman is now injured, so he needs to get to the ship so his wounds can be healed by Miranda. And Lenalee declares that she will be the one to kill this Akuma. Robbie, of course, refuses to go, telling Lenalee that he's a level 3. He's too strong for you to fight on your own. You have to let me help you. She completely ignores Robbie altogether and starts trading blows with Ishii. She then knocks Ishii into the water, and while following back after him, she once again passes by Robbie and tells him, I'll be fine, you need to go back to the ship. She then gives Robbie a very sad smile. Robbie realizes what's happening and accepts it, and decides to go back to the ship. That's when Bookman regains consciousness and warns Robbie, while he was being dragged above the clouds, there are more Akuma. And at that very second, thousands of Akuma bullets just rain down on the ship, ripping it apart and hitting the crew. Akuma bullets are giant shells that rip massive holes in your body, but even if it doesn't, even if it just clips you, the poison will kill you anyway, unless you're a paramecia type exorcist. This is important because Miranda is not, and a bunch of those rounds are headed right for her. That is when the the crew of the ship use their own bodies as shields to protect her. She begs them to stop because once her power deactivates, they're all going to die now. And their response is, we were already hit in the first barrage, so we're happy to use ourselves as shields since we're corpses anyway. And you see this courage again and again with the finders and the supporters of the church and basically all these normal people who aren't exorcists constantly willing to give everything. So you really have to just show your respect to the dedication that these men and women have to save the world. Crowley's pissed because all he can do now is block bullets. They're too high up in the sky and he can't see them, so he can't do anything. He's got to be able to bite them to be able to suck their blood after all. Robbie and Bookman get back to the ship, all their wounds heal, and the first thing Robbie does is launch a fire snake into the clouds, most likely missing because he can't see either. Both Anati and Monja decide to take hold of the steering wheel and ordered the crew to put out maximum power in the engine room to get to Japan as fast as possible, because if they can't attack the enemy behind the clouds that are hiding, the best thing that the crew can do is at least get the Exodus to Japan. Once again, these people are dedicated. So as the Akuma continue to fire down from the clouds, so Robbie decides to switch from his fire stamp to his lightning stamp, which is a scatter shot of electricity. Unfortunately, that's also missing. Crowley, being as insensitive as he is, and a hothead, he continues just to yell at Robbie about the fact that he can't hit the target. Then out of nowhere, suddenly the ship starts to sink. So even their plan to try to get to Japan as quickly as possible is also completely stopped. Now they're just stuck. They're going to slowly sink as they're being shot down by Akuma from the sky. Back with Ishii and Lenalee, she then asked him what did he do to the ship, because she's the only one who seems to know what's going on, at least a little bit, but he completely ignores her and just attacks. While she doesn't seem to have the power to actually hurt him, she does have the speed advantage and she's just laying blow after blow on him. But once again, she's not actually hurting him. At a certain point, he's actually able to catch her, and he inflicts a massive blow to her stomach. She spits up blood, but she gets on her feet again quickly. Unfortunately, then she starts to sink. Yeah, so the reason why the ship is sinking is because the Akuma's ability is gravity chains. Whatever he touches, he wraps this chain around said thing. So even though Miranda is constantly healing the ship, preventing there from being holes in the ship to fill it with water, but that's not the issue. Once again, it's dark matter chains that are dragging down the ship. And currently, Lenalee is also experiencing that. That's the whole reason why she was even able to catch Lenalee to begin with, is because as the chains continue to drag her down, she's slowing down. So her speed advantage is going away. And now that Eshi is the one who has the speed advantage, he's just beating the hell out of Lenalee. And unlike Eshi, who has this almost indestructible body, Lenalee is still human, even if she is powered by innocence, and is just taking a beating. Her body's just covered in wounds and blood, and he gives one last massive punch, smashing her deep into the ocean. Kamui seems to sense the fact that his sister just got knocked into the ocean and is possibly dying, because he then wakes up his exhausted sleep and basically just calls out her name. And as you can imagine, Eshi is a typical Akuma. He enjoys suffering and he enjoys the death of mortals, and he actually starts to laugh like a lunatic. In fact, he even opens up all of his eyes, and he's got like 10 of them across his entire face. He's so happy and giddy because he can finally hear her heartbeat slowing as she continues to sink. His only regret seems to be that he can't go into the water himself, because even he can't handle the heavy pressure of the ocean. Yeah, so he's a complete sick bastard. In fact, his bloodlust and satisfaction at Lenalee dying activates Alan's innocence all across the ocean in China. It forcibly wakens up Alan to the point where it actually begins to be painful, because his cursed eye is trying to get Alan to go towards that Akuma, because that's what it's always wanted. It wants to be near Akuma. It wants to have Alan kill Akuma. And it's not just Ishii. Alan is able to see all kinds of Akuma across the area, far, far away. Their souls are just screaming out to him, and there's nothing he can do about it. He can just suffer with the pain of his eye throbbing. He then actually hears Lenalee calling out to him as she sinks into the ocean, and this brings back a memory when his eye was acting up before, and Lenalee was worried about him, and he constantly was pulling himself away, refusing to go near her, because Alan doesn't want her to see his horrific eye. But she pulls him towards her and says, please don't go into the darkness. Even if you don't want me to see it, I won't look, but please stop going deeper into the darkness. She actually grabs onto Alan and starts crying, and Alan then realizes, okay, did you have a bad dream again? And she tells him, yes, I've been having the same dream over and over again. It's a dream about the end of the world. Alan then tries to comfort her, and she asks him, when you close your eyes and you think of the world, what do you see? And Alan asks, what do you mean? Lenalee explains, well, when she closes her eyes, she doesn't see places or a world map. When she thinks of the world, she only thinks of the people that are important to her, all of her friends, and she would actually be okay with everything else being destroyed as long as she can save her friends. And she even says that she's probably a bad person for thinking that way, that these people that she loves are more important to her than the actual world. And so the point that Lenalee is trying to express to Alan is, even if they save the world, if everyone she cares about is dead and gone, her world is destroyed. So please, don't die, don't disappear, don't keep going into the dark. And at the exact same time Alan is remembering this, so is Lenalee, and she wakes up from her unconscious state as she sinks to the bottom of the ocean and continues to fight. Ichi can hear her and is actually getting excited because he wants her to come back up so he can continue to make her suffer. While still drowning, Lenalee activates her innocence to its full extent. She does this because innocence and dark matter are complete opposites, and innocence forces dark matter away. So she can keep her innocence at 100% at all times. She's able to keep the dark matter chains away, which means she won't be under the influence of Ichi's gravity. With that being said, she's quite scared of what she's doing because this is exactly what Alan was doing whenever he was trying to save Suman, and obviously that led to his arm breaking down and him in the state that he is now, which means Lenalee is risking both her life and, if she somehow survives this, her legs, but she's willing to completely look past her fear for the sake of her world, her friends. We go back to the ship and Crowley's done. Yeah, he burned through whatever Akuma blood he had in his body and he's unable to keep fighting. As for the ship, it is continuously sinking. In fact, it's already halfway underwater. And since they're just hanging on for dear life, trying not to fall into the water, this makes it easier for the bullets to rain down on them, and Robbie actually gets hit. This is a big deal because he isn't a paramecium type, he is an equipment type, so the poison of an Akuma bullet can kill him. He sinks below the waves as the black pentagrams begin to cover his body. That's when Crowley decides to jump in after him and straight bites his neck and starts sucking out the poison. Crowley pulls both of them out of the water and back onto the ship, and he's all juiced up. So apparently he doesn't just get powered by Akuma blood, he also gets powered by Akuma poison. And he's real excited because now he's ready to fight. But once again, they don't know where the Akuma are, they're hiding behind the clouds. That's when Bookman starts calling them both retards, because apparently this whole time Robbie could have used something called the wood seal. But apparently, because Robbie barely uses this seal, he forgot all about it. And as you can imagine, Bookman is not happy about that. He just calls him an idiot over and over again. That's when Robbie tells Crowley what the plan is, and the two are like, okay, let's do this. And as that is happening, an Akuma from below in the water is now swimming towards their ship. So yeah, they got a level 3 sinking their ship, they got a couple level 2s above the clouds, and they got another level 2 below the water. Back with the fight with Lenalee and Ichi, Ichi starts beating the shit out of Lenalee some more, and he tells her, you can't win because I'm a close combat type. And that's when Lenalee says, okay, so there's different types of level 3s, which means not all level 3s are this strong. He's just a stubborn type to kill because his body's meant for close combat. And that puts some real fire in Lenalee's eyes. And so Lenalee starts to basically believe she's gonna die here. She starts to apologize to Robbie for not coming back to the ship. She regrets not giving back Anatia's hairband, and she even thanks Alan for always looking out for her, and she says she does believe he will come back to them. Her veins all over her body start to pulsate, and it looks very disturbing. This is, of course, her innocence being pushed to its very limit, beginning to break down her body. Ichi also notices this and asks what's going on, and Lenalee's like, I'm breaking down. And this pisses off Ichi because he believes killing someone is only fun if they suffer. So since Lenalee hasn't suffered enough in his eyes, she isn't allowed to just kill herself. But then Lenalee looks him directly in the eye and says, oh, don't worry, you'll be the one dying first. He then decides to ragdoll the shit out of her, just beating her with as many punches as possible, screaming, squirm, squirm, squirm over and over again. And she's just taking the abuse. And then he lets her go to fall back into the water again, like he did last time, but this time she jumps above him, and then activates her innocence even more, creating a new technique, iron fetters. It looks like a giant spear that her legs morphed into together. Obviously, Ichi doesn't care because even with that, Lenalee doesn't have the power to kill him. But Lenalee tells him, no, I do have the power because you just gave it to me. Yeah, so she let Ichi beat the crap out of her just now because every time he hits her, he adds more gravity chains. But Ichi doesn't notice just how much he gave her because she's been keeping the gravity chains at bay with her innocence. She stops doing that, and all you see is an entire tornado of gravity chains wrap around her entire body. And at that moment, that's when Ichi realizes what's about to happen. But it's too late. Lenalee drops from the clouds, actually ripping them apart as she descends, and crashes right on top of Ichi. He's trying to hold back with all his strength, but this is the weight of 40,000 tons. Ichi compares the force of the impact to a meteorite. That's when he realizes that at this speed and this force, she's also going to burn up her own body like a meteorite. And so basically, Lenalee is doing a suicide attack. But that's when Ichi also realizes that if he's able to endure until her body completely burns away, he wins. He doesn't have to die with her. And so that's basically his plan, just to endure until she's completely turned to ash. And he's right, Lenalee actually starts to set fire. In fact, her hair just begins to burn away to the point where she actually loses Anatia's hair tie, and she actually reaches out to grab it. But in the process of being burned away, she can still hear Ecchi screaming, trying to force back the meteor, holding out until Lenalee dies. And that's when Lenalee realizes, no, he needs to die now. And she decides to put her full force of her innocence into this giant weight as well. And she successfully rips through Ecchi, actually cutting his body in half, finally exercising the level 3. As this happens, the gravity chains obviously break apart and disappear. Unfortunately, that was everything that Lenalee had. She falls into the water, and her last thoughts are of her brother. And of course, she apologizes because they'll never see each other again. And that is where I'm going to end off this video. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, give a thumbs up so you can enjoy more D. Gray Man and other May things. Thank you, and have a great day.